Yeah, go ahead.
The danger in creating district lines based on solely geographic units and making them all equal in size is the principle of one person, one vote established in Westbury v. Sanders is put into direct contradiction, because one person, one vote establishes that each voter within a district has the same influence in voting as another voter within another district. If it was based on geographic population, then rural areas with less constituents would have inflated votes versus urban communities.
Well said. What I was getting at is the infusion of money into a district where a member of Congress gets that. Sometimes they're more likely to represent the interests of the people giving them money than the people in the geographical district, irrespective of how they're divided up.
Representatives can vote in either a trustee, delegate, or partisan way. If he's a trustee, then the people are trusting him to vote however he thinks is appropriate. If he's a delegate, he's going to vote how his constituents want. And if he's a partisan, he's going to vote along party lines. Regardless of money coming in or of money coming into the representative, he's still going to choose one of those three ways to vote. And the representatives have chosen him and can take him, not re-elect him into office when his term is up.
State legislators can pass legislation capping the amount of money being given by a certain group or a certain person, and this would eliminate the representatives' tendency to favor their views over their other constituents.
To follow up a little on your thought there, my Democratic congressman voted against the health care bill, perhaps because he feared not being reelected. What do you think of voting based on self-interest?
Voting based on self-interest is not necessarily the true test of our democracy. It is the part of our democratic system is that we elect congressmen to Congress to represent the constituents for which they were voted for, and therefore, although it is natural to think of one's self-interest, it should be put to the test to the people to elect their congressmen, and therefore they should represent their own constituents. In the situation of your congressman where you stated that he's not voting because of fear of not being reelected, it means that his constituents would not want the health care bill passed, therefore he voted in line with what their beliefs were.
By him not voting for the health care bill, he is sending a message to Congress and to the president that he is keeping in mind his midterm election and faces not re-election, and he's giving the voice of his constituents that they do not agree with the health care bill.
In most of the world that has democracy, the system is parliamentary. And in countries like Israel, where the voters now vote separately for prime minister and member of parliament, and in the UK, where every election becomes more like America, some of these parliamentary systems are making their system more like ours. Why do you think they might be doing that?
In Israel, if the prime minister is elected separately from parliament, it allows for a divided government, which is unique to the United States and which is not present in England, where they will always have a unified government. Divided government is a plus because it can act as a check on the prime minister or the president, as seen in the United States. For example, during President Nixon's presidency, some believe that the threat of impeachment wouldn't have even loomed over him if there was not a divided government. Therefore, he would have not resigned from office. This could also be seen in the now implementation now in the British parliamentary elections now going on in May. That it can be seen that the three-party leaders within the British Parliament are now taking part in American-style television debates, showing that they are now wishing to be more representative of their people, so the people will know more on what their platforms stand for, as seen within. Because the British parliamentary elections usually don't take more than 2 to 3 weeks, the constituents don't have as much time as we do within the years of campaigning to get to know their representatives. Therefore, this allows them to more accurately know the platforms of their candidates.
This movement from a parliamentary system more towards our current system of presidential is also seen within the British system in that in 2009 they recognized that their fusion of power was creating discrepancies and ineffectiveness, in that now they established an independent judiciary that was not made up of judges straight out of their parliamentary system.
You mentioned the case of Shaw versus Reno.
Mm-hmm.
Another case that comes to my mind was the case called Gomillion versus Lightfoot, where state legislature, where a city was divided up into 28-sided figure based only on race. In that case, 1960, the court used the 15th Amendment, saying that it would violate the 15th Amendment, but in Shaw versus Reno, they used the 14th Amendment. Is there some reason why they used the 14th Amendment?
They use the 14th Amendment because it's an issue of equal protection. Thank you. Equal protection,
Okay.
where the people, they were being put into groups based on solely their race. Whereas just because two people may be of the same race, they're not necessarily going to have the same interests. For example, if in Florida they make a district that takes part of, for example, the District 16 in Florida spreads from the Gulf of Mexico all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. If this was done on a racial basis, the people that are living by the Gulf of Mexico are not going to have the same local concerns that the people living by the Atlantic Ocean are going to have. It's directly across the entire state.
This was further established in the case of Miller v. Johnson, which used Shaw v. Reno as a precedent in that racial gerrymandering is unconstitutional.
Yes. Do you think the bitter partisanship in Congress that we've seen today is partly a consequence of the way congressional districts are drawn?
It can be seen as a part of the way that districts are drawn, because since the districts are full of such heavy partisanship, since the districts are full of so many people that are either of the Republican or Democratic Party, then the constituents are, the incumbents are going to be more likely to vote with their party lines, because it's a reflection of what their people actually want, because that's the party that their people belong to.
Because state legislators are the ones who draw district lines specifically within their state, they might have a tendency to draw them in cases of gerrymandering, to draw them favoring their political party or what so, therefore contributing possibly to the partisanship within Congress today.
The technique of packing, which is a form of gerrymandering in which the minority of the political party in the state legislature is packed into a single district or into fewer districts than they would geographically be accustomed to. Through this, they widen the gap among majority and the minority party within the state legislature, further establishing that all the Democrats would be packed into one district and all the Republicans into another, more creating this partisanship within Congress, further creating.